Charlemagne, also known as Charles the Great, may be someone you've heard very little about, but despite this, he was in fact one of the most influential rulers in all of European history. Born as early as 747 AD, his reign came to shape the course of the Middle Ages. He became king of a people known as the Franks, and laid the foundations for what later became known as the Holy Roman Empire, an empire which lasted for 1,000 years. Under his leadership, and through a series of military conquests, strategic alliances, and religious reforms, he united much of Western Europe. He subsequently triggered a revival of culture and learning throughout his empire, and his close relationship with the leader of the Catholic Church solidified his place as a key figure in both European politics as well as Christian history. Today, we'll explore the life and legacy of Charlemagne, a somewhat overshadowed ruler, but one whose impact still echoes throughout the Western world today. So sit back and relax, and remember to subscribe for more. The year is somewhere around 747 AD, and in what is now Belgium, a baby was born named Carolus, or Charles for those of you who don't speak Latin. He was born into a noble family, with his father being known as Pepin the Short, who was the then king of the Franks, a Germanic tribe and a precursor to the modern-day French people, and his mother was also a noblewoman, known as Bertrada of Laon. They were part of the Carolingian dynasty, which had risen to prominence in the 8th century after his grandfather Charles Martel, also known as Charles the Hammer, halted the Muslim expansion into Europe by defeating their forces in 732 as they advanced up through Spain at what was known as the Battle of Tours. Charlemagne's family was deeply intertwined within the Catholic Church, and his reign would later be defined by a close relationship with the papacy. Charlemagne's rise to power began in 768, after his father's death, where alongside his brother Charlemagne, he was crowned king of the Franks. The brothers initially co-ruled, but Charlemagne's ultimate death in 771 left Charlemagne as the sole ruler of the Frankish kingdom. This event solidified his control over the vast territories his father had amassed. Although his reign began with a focus on consolidating power, he quickly set out to expand the Frankish Empire through a series of military campaigns and strategic alliances, laying the foundation for what would become the Holy Roman Empire. His rule was generally marked by military success, diplomacy, and a deep commitment to strengthening Christianity across his lands. Charlemagne's most significant military endeavour may have been his war against the Saxons, a group of Germanic tribes in what is now modern-day northern Germany. One of his primary objectives at the time was to ensure the spread of Christianity across Europe. The Saxons, who had their own pagan beliefs and traditions, were particularly resistant to the idea, but Charlemagne believed it was his duty and wouldn't shy away from using force where he deemed it necessary. His campaigns against the Saxons were long and brutal, often involving forced baptisms and the destruction of pagan religious sites. The Saxon Wars ultimately lasted for over 3 decades, culminating in the eventual subjugation of the Saxons by 804 AD, after which they were integrated into Charlemagne's empire. His success was not only personal, but further helped spread Christianity across Europe. Charlemagne's military campaigns, however, were not limited to just northern Europe. Going back as far as 773 AD, he intervened in Italy to support Pope Adrian I, who was under threat from another Germanic tribe known as the Lombards that had taken control of much of Italy. Charlemagne defeated the king of the Lombards, known as King Desiderius, and took control of the kingdom, further securing his influence in Italy. In 774 AD, he was officially crowned their king, further strengthening his position in Europe. Charlemagne wasn't shy when it came to fighting, and over time he also directed his military efforts towards the east, where he campaigned against a nomadic group known as the Avars that controlled a large part of Central Europe in the 790s, including what is now modern-day Austria and Hungary, and he eventually conquered them in 796 AD. This led up to what was one of the most famous moments in Charlemagne's reign, which came in 800 AD, when Pope Leo III crowned him Emperor of the Romans during a ceremony in Rome. This event is seen as one of the most significant in medieval history, as it marked the revival of the idea of the Roman Empire in the West, an idea which had been dormant since the fall of the Western Roman Empire in 476. The coronation symbolised the merging of the secular and religious authorities, with the Pope elevating Charlemagne to the position of emperor and thereby cementing his status as the protector of Christendom. The coronation had implications from both sides, however, and it wasn't just a religious event, but also a political manoeuvre. By crowning Charlemagne, the Pope sought to strengthen his own position by aligning himself with one of the most powerful rulers in Europe. For Charlemagne, the coronation provided a divine sanction to his rule, and he used it to further justify his military campaigns, many of which had been aimed at spreading Christianity across his ever-expanding empire. He took the opportunity to standardise Christian practices and pushed for uniformity in both liturgy as well as church administration. He convened several church councils to address the religious issues of the day and to ensure that the clergy adhered to what was considered correct Christian doctrine. His efforts led to what we touched upon earlier, a revival of learning and scholarship that helped preserve Christian texts and Latin literature. This became known as the Carolingian Renaissance and laid the foundations for the intellectual boom which would later occur across Europe and give us the likes of Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, along with some of the greatest artistic masterpieces ever created. As a result, it's difficult to quantify Charlemagne's impact, especially when we look at a map of modern Europe. It seems almost impossible to imagine a time where the majority of Western Europe was united under a single ruler, especially considering that the Holy Roman Empire was made up from a number of different ethnic groups, all speaking a variety of different languages, many of which were the predecessors for the numerous modern-day European languages. As we already mentioned, however, the Holy Roman Empire lasted in its various forms for the next 1,000 years, and although fractures emerged coming from events such as the Reformation or the 30 Years' War, it wasn't truly ended until the reign of Napoleon in 1806. Quite remarkable really when you think about it. But nevertheless, Europe owes a lot to the efforts of Charlemagne, and would look very different had he never taken the throne. He left behind an enduring legacy, and shaped both the cultural and religious identity of the Europeans. He became known as a symbol of faith, a symbol of unity, and was considered a bright spot during a time which later became known as the Dark Ages. And despite his enormous influence and importance, he is still largely left out of history class at school. That's all for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Please remember to do all the YouTubey things, as it's much appreciated. Bye for now.